If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new songs in the description. The question whether Donda 2 will ever come to streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music, or just be available anywhere but on the stem player, which is the only place you can get it right now, was a question that plagued Kanye fans ever since the original album released in February of this year. And there are a couple more hints that we got, especially also through the 2 days prior released last week vlog from Kanye that we're gonna go over. So let's jump straight into this and let's see if Donda 2 will actually ever drop on streaming services. I want to mention real quick that yesterday I dropped an in-depth video on this last week vlog that Kanye put out 2 days ago, where I go over every scene and analyze the video, and it took me a lot of effort. I would really appreciate it if some of you would check it out, because it could also give some Kanye fans a bit better idea of what's also happening in his life right now. But let's get into Donda 2 now. So Donda 2 originally released in February of this year, but it only released on the stem player, and this is an issue that I've talked about, in length quite as well back when it dropped, because this was a very interesting idea that Kanye had to only release it as also like stemmed out, only on the stem player for fans to dissect the album and only listen to it over a device that they would have to pay a 3-figure price for, which is obviously not very accessible for a lot of people. So it was always a speculation that at some point Kanye would put the album on streaming services, because Donda 1 was also on the streaming services, and you could also get Donda 2 on the stem player, so it wasn't like a mutually exclusive thing. You could have it on both. For the people that like the stem player, you could just put it out on the stem player and they could like play around with the stems and have like the drums here and the vocals. You know what the stem player does. And Kanye is someone that also cares a lot about making things accessible for everybody. We've seen him talk about wanting to create $20 pieces for Yeezy. He's done that with the Gap deal already. So he wants, his projects and his inventions to be accessible for everybody, and only making your music accessible to a certain group of people that own the stem player that costs a considerably, large amount of money is not very accessible. And I feel like talking about making clothing available for everybody and, cutting the prices down to $20, but then putting out your music only on your own product that you have to pay a lot of money for, when people already have Spotify or Apple Music, and that would also be a good way to also, get a better reach for your album and make even more money off of it, I think is a bit hypocritical. So I think that that's a very good argument that we got to press Kanye about. So at Kanye at this one, you're a bit hypocritical for making very cheap clothing but not giving us music for, not free, but like for the low, you feel me? Before we get into the new vlog and the speculations that it sparked, I also want to mention that there was some rumors in May of this year that, the actual album would come on Spotify when the True Love single featuring X dropped on streaming services, and people were like, okay, this is like the first rollout of the album, we're gonna get each single after this now. This is like the first one that he wants to put out, and the single is actually doing pretty well, but the reality of things is that single was only put out to support the XXXTentacion Look at Me documentary that dropped on Hulu back in May, and they had to put the song out on streaming so they would have an ISRC number that they could then reference to in the documentary, just for legal reasons or for production reasons, whatever. That was the main reason behind this. That's also the reason we never got another Donda 2 single after that. So the True Love single is not a very good place to start when arguing for a possible release of Donda 2 on streaming, just because a lot of people were bringing that up back then. That's not a real reason. But now we got to talk about what happened in this new vlog. I went over it a little bit in my in-depth review of this whole thing yesterday, but he played Donda 2 tracks. He played new tracks as well. He played, a new track referencing Lil Baby, Drake, Moneybagg Yo, Future as well, which is funny, which might be in like an extended cut on Donda 2. But he also played, for example, Sci-Fi, for example, we also heard the Soulja Boy verse finally after making such a big drama about it for Kanye not putting him on the album. So he played Donda 2 snippets, and also, as I said, stuff that we didn't hear before, which definitely is a great indicator that this thing is actually coming out. Because this means that he's still working on the music, he's still working on the album, and it's not done yet. It's not like he finished the project in February, put it out, and just didn't touch it again. He's actively working on it and putting other people on it. Now, obviously, he could have also just played the verse just in the car for people to maybe hear a little snippet of it, but I don't think Kanye will be listening to his own album 7 months after already dropped in an unreleased state. And especially with the whole conversation of, is it coming to streaming, it's definitely a great argument that really speaks for this. Also, at a later point in the documentary, or in the vlog, video, whatever you want to call it, he talks about renting out a stadium. He talks about getting a big venue. Now, he didn't specify exactly what that was going to be used for, but there's a great possibility also that we're going to get more listening parties. Why otherwise would he want to rent a stadium? So that's another reason why maybe we're going to get more listening parties, which would then also, kind of go hand in hand with the possible release of Donda 2. Now, obviously, there's also a possibility of a Donda 3 release. I don't think that he's actually working on this. A couple of sources, were like talking about this after Donda 2 dropped, that he's immediately working on the next one. I don't know how much truth there is to this. It might actually be the case, but I think for right now, we got to focus on if Donda 2 is actually coming to streaming or not. So him renting out a stadium for possible new listening parties might also be an indicator of Donda 2 being released in its final full version that he wants the fans to experience through these listening parties. So that's another reason for it. And as I said, the snippets that he played, which by the way, if you haven't heard them yet, make sure to go check out that last week vlog where there's scenes in the car where he plays new music. I think it's pretty dope. You can hear a couple of new people on there, a couple of new snippets from the songs. As I said, the sci-fi snippet was amazing. So I'm really happy about that. And I think we're actually going to get it someday. My honest opinion is that Donda 2 at some point will come to streaming. Even if it's not this year, even if it'll still take some time, I think Donda 2 is on its way to come to streaming, just because of the fact that when he initially dropped it for the stem player, it wasn't yet finalized. There were still features missing, there were still parts of songs missing, parts of the songs were still Kanye just mumbling, so just trying to get the cadences in, but not in a finished state. And I think if he actually sat down and finished the album, he would put it out on streaming for everybody to have access to it. So that's the state of affairs we have right now when it comes to Donda 2 ever coming to streaming. Obviously, I want to know what y'all think about this. What are your thoughts and your theories on this? Do you think Donda 2 will ever make it to streaming? Do you think it'll be a big release because people on streaming haven't heard it? Or do you think it'll just kind of go under as a re-release? All your thoughts and theories on this, please let me know in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and y'all take care.